All right, it's right at 8 a.m. Thanks for joining us bright and early. We're recording this webinar, so if you missed part of it, then we'll make sure to send this recording out to everybody. And if any of your colleagues miss it, then we'll make sure they get what they need as well. Want to welcome you again to the TClass deep dive around Decision 10, the new school models. Let's jump in. A few introductions of the team. We are joined today by Megha Kansra, the Director of System Support and Innovation, who you'll hear from in a minute. My name is Chris DeWitt. I'm the Director of System Support at TEA. Laura Hyatt is the Manager of the School Action Fund, who you'll hear from later this morning as well. And super excited, I think it's day 4 on the job for Stephen Rachel, our District Support Specialist for the School Action Fund, who you might be interacting with this fall. Thanks again for being here, everybody. I'm going to go over the agenda real quick and then pass it to Megha to talk about TClass in general. That's the first step here. We'll talk about what is TClass, make sure we're all singing from the same hymnal there. Then we'll spend some time jumping into Decision Point 10, new school models. We'll talk about what the new school models are, what the supports that you could expect if you participate in the new school models initiative. And we'll spend some time at the end of this morning with Q&A and talking about next steps. A few logistical notes. We have the Q&A feature enabled here. So if you have any questions or reactions, please type in your questions there, and we'll answer them either in the chat or live, or save them to the end of the webinar. We'll absolutely follow up with any slides or recordings. We'll have those, and all materials will be posted on the TEA website. That goes for this webinar as well as all the other webinars that you might have participated in this week. So our first stop is an overview of TClass, and I'm going to pass it to Megha Kansra to walk us through that.
Thank you, Chris. So TClass stands for Texas COVID Learning Acceleration Supports, and TClass is really a set of targeted supports and additional state and federal funding. So additional on top of the ESSER funding districts have already received. They're really intended to support you all with learning acceleration. And you all as LEAs are able to access TClass funding and supports through a single streamlined grant application. And we've worked hard knowing that many of you sometimes apply to multiple programs at the TEA and go through different selection processes. So we've really pulled a number of programs into one application and have tried to make it as simple as possible. No narrative responses required, no need for grant writers. So really a one-stop shop. And as an overview, you all as districts through TClass will have access to about $1.4 billion in services and supports. We've pulled together about 15 different TEA initiatives that provide targeted supports for learning acceleration. And again, that's all available in one application. For those of you who've been on our webinars before in the past or have had an overview of TClass, you probably know by now that we've really organized our supports in TClass around 5 key accelerated learning strategies: strategic planning, instructional materials, teacher pipelines, more time, including tutoring, and innovative school models. And let's see if we can move to the next slide there. And under each of these accelerated learning strategies, we've really laid out 10 overall decision points. So when you approach the application, you'll actually see in the application that we've broken all of these out into different decision points. So you can opt into any of these 10 supports. And you can kind of get an overview here. Many of the decision points we have, say, for example, decision point 1 around strategic planning, are actually aligned to pre-existing TEA initiatives. So from decision one, we actually have previously launched the Resilient School Support Program that's really quite similar to the strategic planning supports you'll get. So this slide is actually a good reference to go back to if you're looking to just make some cross connections, especially if you've taken part in other TEA initiatives before. Now, the focus of this particular webinar is actually decision point 10. So this is a decision point within the innovative school models, accelerated learning strategy, and specifically today we'll be focusing on new school models, which is very aligned really and pretty much the same thing as a pre-existing program called the School Action Fund. And some of you might have actually taken part in the School Action Fund before, so we wanted to make that connection really explicit here on the call. With that, I'll pass it over to Chris to dive deeper.
Thanks, Megha. So yes, the decision is new school models. That incorporates a few other initiatives. The focus of this call is the School Action Fund component of Decision 10. So you'll hear the School Action Fund mentioned throughout this presentation because it is a reference to that pre-existing program that's in its 5th year at the moment, and we'll talk more about what that actually looks like in this presentation. Wanted to take a second to just read the room a little bit. If you could type in the Q&A your answer to the following prompts. Enter a number 1 through 5, 5 being the highest. In the chat, the most applies to you. I have watched other webinars on TClass or read the TClass document. 5 for absolutely could recite in my sleep. 1 pretty fresh, and number 2, I am familiar or do not know about SAF. 5, I would say you've done a School Action Fund before. 1, pretty fresh. I'll give a second to have folks respond, and we'll just scan through the responses here. Great, good mix of folks here. Great. Good to see some familiar faces here, some School Action Fund alums. And great to see some new folks too who are interested in learning more. Great. Well, thanks everyone for jumping in, and again, thank you for being here bright and early on a Thursday morning. Let's jump into the deep dive here to see what we're talking about. So we wanted to start with why school actions. The whole point of school actions is to increase the number of students in high quality schools across the state. We do this by providing customized planning and implementation support to districts committed to launching bold whole school models. And our North Star is at the end of implementation, after you have planned and implemented this new school model, your school will be high performing, rated A or B on the A through F rating system. So that's our North Star, and all of our supports align to that. And this is more important than ever. The actions we take now must be different from what we've done in the past. Even pre-COVID, Texas schools had a hard time catching students up. So we know that we need to do things differently. We also know that COVID has increased the number of students who are below grade level, but also increased the typical summer slide. We expect more students to be below grade level in the coming years. So we have to do things differently. And the School Action Fund, the school actions provide a pathway for districts to think differently about how they provide the schools that families want and need in their communities. So let's talk about the school actions specifically. Districts have a choice to make. For most schools in their districts, you can think of it almost like response to intervention. Schools are responding well to traditional school improvement strategies. Improving upon the effective schools framework is making gains in a lot of schools. In some schools, though, you need something different. You need something bolder. You need something more comprehensive across the whole school. And that's where school actions come in. So you as LEA leaders have a choice to make. Is what is currently working and it's kind of a good to great situation, or is something bigger needed to provide your students the schools they need? And if that's the case, then school action could be something that you consider. There are 4 school actions in 3 buckets. The 3 buckets are redesign a school, create a new school, or restart a struggling school. These are the buckets of school actions available in TClass. And then within each of those buckets, there are specific school actions that you could consider. For redesign with a blended learning model or with a rural collegiate education model. Create a new school as a district managed school, or restart a school as an ACE model. I'm going to talk about each one of these actions in detail. But first, the funding. I know that's a key component here. So each of the planning grants, so talking about redesign and create a new school, come with a $250,000 planning grant for the first year. And as long as districts and campuses meet goal progress measures as defined by this team, then they'll be eligible for 2 additional years of continuation funding. For redesign, that's an additional $500K. And for create a new school, which is more resource intensive, you're starting a brand new school, it's $1 million for continuation for 2 years. For ACE, and I'll talk more about that, we're only funding implementation. So there's no planning year for ACE. These campuses already need to be designated as ACE campuses. So they'll be eligible for a 2-year implementation grant for $750K. We'll talk more about the funding later on in the call. And as you can see, school actions are being implemented across the state. Almost every region has districts that are implementing school actions. And as you can see, these are very diverse in terms of makeup. They're urban, rural, suburban, they're large, they're small. They have a variety of demographic makeups. The fundamental question that all of these districts are asking themselves is, how are we delivering the schools that families want and need? That is the fundamental question that districts ask themselves when considering a school action. So let's dive into each one of those available school actions in detail. There's a common thread between all of the school actions, regardless of the specific model. And that is that they are ESF aligned. So if your district is already incorporating the effective schools framework across your campuses, then these school actions will be 100% aligned as well. They all have high quality instructional materials. Many of you are working with CRIMSI, for example, another TA initiative geared around high quality instructional materials. Those same types of materials will fit within a school action. All school actions have student diagnostic assessments, high dosage tutoring, and extended day or year. So regardless of the specific action, they all have these common components. So the first action we'll talk about is redesign a campus with a blended learning model. So blended learning redesigns take an existing campus and keep the staff, keep the leader, and just rethink how we're delivering instruction to students. And they do that, they deliver this high quality instruction through an engaging blended learning model that's for all grade levels, all subject areas, campus-wide. So the key elements for this specific action, you would identify a principal who completes a school redesign process with the TA provider. In this case, it's Transcend Education. School leaders will pilot elements of this new school design, including blended learning strategies, curriculum, and assessment. They'll design this ESF school model and submit that plan to TEA for review. And as you can imagine, this takes a lot of time. So the school leader will need to have some release time to dedicate to the planning activities. Now let's look at some examples here. Spring ISD is a district in Houston that leaned real heavily into this particular school action. They identified 4 campuses that had some commonality to redesign those campuses. And so this new innovation zone will launch next year after a full planning year with aligned, high quality instructional materials, blended learning, campus-wide, student resiliency supports, and extended day. So this is an example of what how the redesign action could be used. Could be used for a group of campuses or a single campus, but what you'll end up with is a totally redesigned campus with a new instructional model that incorporates blended learning to deliver high quality instruction. The next action we'll talk about is the rural campus with a collegiate education model. If you're familiar with the work that's been done in Roscoe Collegiate ISD in the past decade, this action is modeled off of that successful work. So the rural school redesign will reimagine rural schools to provide more rigorous, community responsive, experiential learning to ensure that students are ready to tackle rigorous secondary and post-secondary coursework. So the key elements here, identifying a principal who will lead this redesign process for the planning year. This is a part of a larger system. So we know about rural districts that as the school goes, the community goes, and as PK, the pre-K through 8th grade goes, so does the high school. So this is geared towards the pre-K 8 component of the rural school district to ensure that districts have, that students are ready to tackle, like I said, rigorous coursework in the secondary grades. So we want this to be paired with a P-TECH. So any district that is interested in this would need to have a P-TECH in place and be ready to redesign the pre-K 8th grade component of their school district. Eligible LEAs must have 500 or fewer students, a K-8 campus that's rated C or F through F on the 2019 TEA ratings, has a designated P-TECH program, and must have a designated central office-based redesign coordinator to shepherd this project along. And like I said, this is modeled off the successful work in Roscoe Collegiate ISD. It has now been scaled to, I believe, up to 5 school districts now, including Floydada and Cumbie. And the technical assistance provider here is Collegiate Education, taking based on some of the original team at Roscoe. They're combining evidence-based curriculum, STEM-focused experiential learning, and authentic community relationships to prepare those pre-K through 8th grade students for rigorous secondary pathways. Like I said, this would need to be paired with a P-TECH in the high school. And thank you for all the questions here. We'll make sure that we work through those at the end of the call. And if we don't get to them, then we'll make sure we follow up in writing after today. The third action that we're supporting through TClass is creating a new school. And like I said, this is creating a brand new school. They'll phase in one grade level at a time, or in the case of an elementary, 2 grade levels, so you could start K-8. But the slow grow model is a core component here. So you grow 1 grade level at a time. And the type of school that you design needs to be responsive to community needs. We don't say you need to start a dual language school or a single gender school. We want the communities to work with stakeholder groups to identify the particular needs of that community and then deliver on those needs. And I'll give you some examples of campuses that have been designed on the next slide. So district and campus leaders will design a brand new school, STEM, single gender, dual language, needs to be responsive to community needs. School leaders need to dedicate at least 3 weeks of school design time in the coming school year. I will say the most successful create a new school actions have a dedicated school leader that is 100% devoted to the design of this new school. Many campuses are leveraging ESSER funds to fund that position. That is the most successful strategy that we have seen. It is possible to make it work as a school leader is running a current campus and designing the new campus that will phase in. But as you can imagine, that's a lot of balancing, and it requires a really strong team to pick up some of the slack. So please talk to us if you're considering this, because we can help you think through different strategies to make this work. It must phase in 1 grade level at a time, or K1 in elementary. And the important thing to take away here is it's a new school. It's in some cases replacing an existing school, but it's not a restart or redesign. It's a brand new school that will phase in. We want to make sure that this highly rigorously designed school is available to the students who need it most. So we want the enrollment policies and practices to prioritize students attending or zoned to comprehensive or targeted campuses. There are various ways you can do that. We're happy to talk to you about what some other campuses and districts have done in the past. So a couple examples here that we're excited about. Commander McCool Academy in Lubbock. Lubbock identified a critical need for more high quality middle school seats. And looking at the data across the state, we know that that is an area of growth for many districts. And after a year-long planning process, campus leaders launched a STEM-focused middle school in August 2020. Awesome time to start a brand new school, I could imagine. And so they're entering year 2 here. We're really excited about the early returns on the data there. Another school that's launching this August in Aldine is Aldine Young Women's Leadership Academy. They identified a need for more high quality seats specifically to support young women. And over the last year, they planned this action with their technical assistance provider, School Empowerment Network, and they're launching in a matter of weeks in Aldine. The last action we'll talk about today before closing up and taking questions is restart a struggling school with an ACE model. Like I said at the top of the call, this is for implementation grants only. So if you are interested in becoming an ACE campus, there is an opportunity this spring to go through a planning process. This opportunity through TClass is only for campuses that are already designated as an ACE campus, have already worked with Commit to plan and launch this action. Restart means new teachers, new leader, new programming to support the same students in the same building, all grade levels at a time. So all these ACE campuses have already gone through that planning process and restarted their campus. Aligned with the ACE model, the 5 pillars of the ACE model are strategic staffing, instructional excellence, extended time, social emotional learning, and parent and community partnerships. And they've all received planning support from Commit, and through this action have an opportunity to receive continued implementation support from that organization. A note here, we have a limited number of slots for this action and a lot of ACE campuses around the state. And we want to make sure that we're kind of sharing the wealth here. So we are going to fund up to one eligible ACE campus per LEA, and then additional grants at LEAs until all available grants are awarded. So a note there, we want to support as many LEAs as possible. So we're going to try to fund one campus per LEA until all grants have been expended. One of the highlights here, Garland ISD has a special place in my heart as a system of great schools district. And one of the more successful ACE campuses is Handley Elementary that has received distinctions in English language arts, is in the top 25% of in terms of academic growth. As a whole, 28 of the 29 campuses in the first 4 years of ACE met accountability standards in year one, in most cases following consecutive years of multiple consecutive years of failure, and achieved increases in student growth upwards of almost 70% in math and 40% in reading. So great gains here for the ACE model, and we're excited to be able to continue to support this work in school districts. I'm going to pass it to Laura to talk about the supports you get as a school action fund or as a TClass school action fund grantee.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Laura Hyatt. I'm the manager of the School Action Fund, and thank you again for joining us. I have been in the Q&A and answering your questions, and we'll answer a few towards the end as well. So I wanted to talk with you for a few minutes about the supports that you get from the School Action Fund within TClass. And so there's three main supports that we'll go through. There's planning support, tools and resources, and funding. With planning support, there are action-specific technical assistance providers, and we match them with LEAs based on the actions selected, and LEAs receive targeted guidance and support to design a whole school model that is responsive to community needs. And that's a key piece, is that it's whole school and responsive to community needs. There's tools and resources such as a school plan. That's part of what you will do in your planning year. There are budget templates, a few community engagement tools, and of course, we collaborate with other agency initiatives, so there's resources from related TEA initiatives as well. Chris mentioned the funding for the School Action Fund options within TClass, and I'll review those further in detail. But you can use the funding for a variety of needs that you have to fund campus and district staff, purchase high quality instructional materials, provide stipends and extra duty pay for teachers, and other related initiatives. And there will be more details coming out about those as well, but really truly aligned to the School Action Fund program guidelines. So Chris mentioned these, but just wanted to highlight them again. So we have matched specific technical assistance providers who are skilled and experienced in each of the actions that are being included in TClass. So to restart a struggling school as an ACE campus, that's Commit. To create a new school as a district managed campus, that's SEN, otherwise known as School Empowerment Network. To redesign a campus with a blended learning model, Transcend Education has been in this space and has been really active. Redesign a rural campus with a P20 model, also known as the collegiate education model, and that is CEN. So just to give you an idea of some more of the resources through stakeholder engagement is truly important in the school action fund process. And so there are tools to communicate with the families, students, teachers, with the broader stakeholder group as far as how to collect input, as well as hopefully, again, be responsive to the community needs. There's design and piloting tools such as school design templates. There are some exemplars. Chris has mentioned some of the districts who are doing some really great work with different actions, and some best practices to support district and campus leaders to planning a high quality school. With policies and processes, we know that in order to hit that North Star goal of an A or B rating in 2 years after implementation, that there might need to be some new policies, some new structures. And so there is support for helping you develop those systems and structures to evaluate the whole school model and make sure that it's ready for students on day one. This gives you an idea of the timeline and the funding tied together. So with the planning year, that's the same for everybody for TClass. So it's going to be fall through July 31st, 2022. And again, redesign and create new schools, that's $250,000. The 2 years of continuation will then start after that if you are awarded those funds. And that is for the redesign options up to $500,000, and for the new schools up to $1 million. And so you can see from the timeline that that will take you through basically July 31st, summer 2024. Implementation will start fall this year for ACE designated schools because they've already been through planning, they're already ACE schools. And so they will have 2 years of funding up to $750,000, and that will go through summer 2023. So we'll go into the TClass application process. I'll jump back in and continue answering your questions. At the end, you'll see all of our contact information, but please reach out if you would like to schedule a follow-up meeting for next week.
Thank you, Laura. A couple of highlights here. If you've attended other webinars, you've seen this slide before. One thing I want to highlight is that, oops, I don't know how to use PowerPoint. One thing I want to highlight is the one thing you can be doing right now before the application drops on Monday, the 19th, is to ensure your board policy allows pre-award costs. As you can see that you'll get preliminary award notification in September, but we don't expect the NOGAs to arrive until December 1st. So making sure that your board policy allows for pre-award is an important step that you can take right now to see if that's currently the case or if there might need to be some adjustment made. The application opens on Monday the 19th, and the application closes on August 20th. In terms of eligibility, we're targeting C through F rated campuses. Remember, our North Star is to increase the number of A or B campuses across the state. So we're focusing on those lower performing campuses. We do have a limited number of grants for B campuses. So please talk to us if you are considering something for a B campus, and we can help you make the right decision. To help us make the awards, we are also awarding priority points. So if you have an Office of Innovation, if the percentage of students that are economically disadvantaged in your district is 75% or higher, and if the district has more than 10% of schools rated D or F on the 2019 A through F ratings, then you'll get priority points in this application. A couple next steps. We, I think, are the penultimate webinar of this week. All of the webinars are available on the TClass website, so please check those out. Also, office hours begin July 26th. So if you have any specific questions, then you can pop into those and talk to somebody about TClass in general, and someone from our team will be there as well to answer any questions you have. And of course, this webinar and recording will be on the TClass website as well. Final call to action before we get to your questions. These are bold school actions. They are not for the faint of heart. They require an investment of time and energy, and we want to make sure that folks are coming into that clear-eyed, know the work that it will take, because it can be highly impactful. As you've seen from these examples, so many districts around the state are choosing school actions as a core component of their school improvement strategy. And we want to spread that, but we want to make sure that folks really understand what they're getting into, because it requires a serious investment on the part of your district leaders. So please be in touch. We want to make sure that we communicate one-on-one with every district that is interested in a school action through TClass. So please be in touch. Here's our contact information. We'll follow up with the folks who registered here to make sure that you have our contact information. You have the opportunity to set up a time to speak to us one-on-one if you're interested in this opportunity. The last thing I'll say is the Center for School Actions, which we'll link here, is a hub for resources about school actions. It includes 2-pagers that you can share with your district staff as you consider these opportunities. It contains some recordings of past webinars we've done, and over the fall we'll be populating that website with case studies and additional research to promote school actions around the state. So keep your eye on the Center for School Actions as well. We're going to put this bit.ly link in the chat in a second, but I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so we can start taking your questions. Let's see. Laura, could you?
So, yes, I was about to say, so Chris, there are some questions that I think would be good to address. And some of them we may not have the answers for you right away, but we can certainly follow up on the answers for you. But I think there's 3 or 4 that we can talk about. So one question is, can ACE campuses that have already received the School Action Fund implementation grant also apply for this support?
Yeah, great question. These are designed, the TClass ACE opportunity is designed for campuses that have not already received school action support, either planning or implementing. So for those campuses, they'll continue to use the resources that have been provided, but we're looking for new campuses that have not received that support so far.
Here's a question as far as a charter and a PTEC. As a K-8 charter, can we partner with a district that has a PTEC program?
Yeah, we might need to follow up with you, Ashley, because we'll need to know which action you're considering. There are some actions that work better for open enrollment charters. Redesign could be one of those, but in most cases, school actions are more geared towards ISDs, so happy to connect with you offline about whether this could be a good fit for your organization.
Okay, another question was, has the TClass Calculator been fixed? So I just sent a note through, and the response has been, can you tell us what issues you're having? And then I just got a note saying it's been updated this morning. So if you still have a problem with it, please put it in the chat so that we can follow up in the background as we go along. So here's another question around PTEC. For the rural CEN, must the school already be a PTEC school, or can we pair decision 10 and decision 9 as we work to redesign a high school into a PTEC P20 model?
Great question. So for TClass, we're looking for campuses that already have a PTEC that is in place. But I will say we have a regular cycle of school action fund. Like I mentioned, we're on cycle 5 now. We anticipate cycle 6 will launch in the spring. And so please keep in touch, because there will likely be an opportunity to do just that in the spring. So not through TClass, but through the regular school action fund cycle in the spring. You could apply for the CEN model as well as a P-TECH opportunity. So please be in touch with us because we can put a finer point around that timing. But I'll say for the TClass opportunity for the CEN model, not the right opportunity, but there will be one in the coming year.
All right, we've got a couple questions around the MIZ, the Math Innovative Zones. So we may not have all of the answers for you, but we've got a couple questions. One is, if we are in our first year of MIZ and partnering with Engage to Learn already, if we wanted to apply for the blended learning redesign campus in order to include all content areas, can we still use Engage to Learn?
Yeah, that's a great question. And unfortunately, we have specific vetted TA providers for the School Action Fund. They have some commonality. So Transcend is doing both Math Innovation Zones and School Action Fund. But for the School Action Fund, the whole school redesign is only Transcend. So again, happy to connect to talk about how this might work in your specific context. But we would want Transcend to be technical assistance provider of record for the whole school redesign with a blended learning model.
All right, so here is another question around MIZ. So what if one of the approved MIZ providers partners is that is an innovative learning model partnered with Transcend as part of a comprehensive blended learning system? So kind of around that same thought process. Would the model need to directly partner with the district and Transcend, or does that model need to also do any application work with TEA?
Yeah, so I see. A couple of clarifications. So the model would be a district managed model. I just want to make sure we're not talking about a district charter partnership, but you would have a district run school that is working with Transcend as the technical assistance provider to provide planning support in year one, and then 2 years of continuation support as the campus is implemented. Through Math Innovation Zones, in most cases, you're focusing on one content area or one grade band, so you would need to complete a new application, a new school plan for this whole school model. We have seen successful examples of this where districts have started with a Math Innovation Zone, piloted the math, for example, content area with blended learning, and then sought a School Action Fund grant to extend that work to the whole school. And so Math Innovation Zones and School Action Fund can very much work hand in hand, but you would need to create a new school plan because in many cases, this is building on top of the work that's already been done through Math Innovation Zones. In addition to the one content area, expanding to other content areas, other grade bands, and the other aspects of the school design as well.
Okay, Chris, I think we've done pretty good. I think we've pretty much answered all of the questions that are there. If anybody has anything additional that they would like to add in, we still have maybe a minute or two. And again, Chris, I know you will show our contact information, but I have put that in the chat for several people. You know, it's pretty easy. So I am Laura.Hyatt, and my last name is just like the hotel chain. So Laura.Hyatt@tea.texas.gov. And if you would like to spend some one-on-one time next week, just shoot me an email.
I do see one additional question here. Can LEAs apply through this, but delay planning until 22-23? Not an ideal scenario because the TClass funds will die at the end of 24. So we're trying to make sure that folks have all of the support that they need So starting this planning year in the fall and then having 2 full years of implementation is a key component of the School Action Fund process.
Okay, I think that was it.
Yep. Great. Well, we are right on time. Like Laura said, please be in touch. We'll send some follow-ups to folks with this brief 1-minute survey because I can't see how to message everybody here. My email address is christopher.dewitt, DEWITT, @tea.texas.gov. So please be in touch. Thank you so much for being here on this webinar and for your interest in the new school models opportunity in TClass and for school actions in general. Look forward to speaking with you more one-on-one.
Have a great week.